Hello, everyone. My name is Beth Bador, and I am with The Creative Life by Design. And today I have a very special guest with us. And our topic is going to be resiliency versus being resilient. I'm so excited about this because I don't even know if I know that much about the topic. So this is just, I'm so curious and so interested. So today we have Christine Robert. How do you pronounce it? Robert.
It's Robenalt.
Okay. And she is a PT and she is also a wife and a mother of three. Might be just like a lot of us out here. So she mainly works with children, but she also has a strong interest in nutrition, mental health, and addressing pain management for all. So interesting. She holds an endorsement in infant mental health, as well as certificates in ACT for chronic pain. She is a yoga teacher, instructor, and trainer, and she is into wellness and mindfulness. And that's what I'm all about. She values an approach that is all participating in active and building bridges with patients, with providers and parents. So today, let's talk about this topic. I'm so excited.
Yeah, for sure. Thank you for having me, Beth. I am glad to be here for sure. So this is a topic that's really close to my heart, and especially these days in the corona times, you hear a lot, just be stronger, just be, be resilient, or and I got to thinking about that because I started seeing people posting about how they're frustrated, or they like, stop saying that. I don't want to be resilient anymore. And I got to thinking like, well, what does that mean? Like, I personally, like, this is coming from the belief that I don't think you can be resilient. I feel that you have to build resiliency. And it's kind of like that thing of like, is your cup full or empty, that analogy. But just thinking about stress in general, and you said you're not sure if you know a lot about this topic, but as a physical therapist, you absolutely do. With exercise, we stress our muscles. So stress is a good thing. We don't want to remove all stress in our life. Stress can help motivate us. Stress can help us do hard things that we didn't think that we could do. But it's the after the stress. Do we have a buffer? Do we have a resource? And if we do, that builds resiliency. If we don't, we go into that fight, flight, or freeze, and we get taken down a notch. And if we don't come out on the other side like victorious or feeling accomplished or whatever, then it just keeps wearing down, and that resiliency is not built. So I don't know. What do you think about that?
I love that concept, especially being a physical therapist. I really can relate to that. So I do know more than I thought I do, but I'm still just so curious. How do you bring this into chronic pain, working with children, that type of stuff? How do you bring resiliency into that?
For sure. Well, earlier in my career, first I've worked in all different facilities and practice settings. So from inpatient rehab to the school system to skilled nursing facilities, I've done it all. And so that kind of eclectic training that I had for 10 plus years was helpful in understanding that people are people are people. Physical therapy is physical therapy is physical therapy. And
right.
Really kind of getting that big picture that I'm pretty darn good at.
I can tell. So tell us more about this topic and how you can have the audience go through this process of feeling this inside.
For sure. So you asked specifically about how I link this back to chronic pain or the families that I serve. So, understanding that concept that people are people, that we all have the same wants and desires and needs. Just maybe we're at different places. Well, of course, we're at all different places along that continuum of really growth and survival. And you can't be doing both at the same time.
Yes, exactly. And I think a lot of us right now in America are feeling like we're just surviving because of the pandemic with COVID that's been going on. So I like to tell people we need to step beyond that and thrive rather than just survive.
Absolutely. And so one thing that I know from the children that I work with, it's not about just telling them you need to do this. So we can use an open hand, and we can definitely invite somebody to thrive despite what is going on. But when somebody doesn't do that, we don't know if it's because they're unable or if they're unwilling.
Yes, yes.
And
especially with children. Yeah.
Especially with children, but even with adults, I told you this is what you need to do. Why didn't you do it?
Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
This is going to be so much easier if you just do it this way.
Yes.
Come on, what's wrong with you?
Yeah. So right now, I would say a lot of the parents are burned out, feeling stressed, all this kind of stuff. So it affects our children.
Absolutely.
So how do you see that showing up when you're working with children?
Well, again, like that concept of not knowing if what I'm asking, inviting somebody to do is whether it's unwilling or unable. I really try to work with this framework, not only with the child that I'm working with, but also with the parent. And the best thing that I feel I can provide that team, the parent and the child, or parents, caregivers, is an understanding of the other.
Yes. So that's how you build the bridges.
Yeah. Yeah.
Awesome.
So I totally see myself the more I work with in pediatrics, the more I realize that when I was an adult therapist, I did it all wrong.
Wow. What an eye opener.
Yeah.
Wow.
Like I wish, not that I really want to go back to outpatient ortho. I don't.
Yeah. I understand that. Yeah. Yeah.
But it was much more of, I'm right. This is what you're going to do. This kind of power and position where I have more knowledge than you. This is what your doctor said. This is what you're going to do, without really understanding their motivations and goals and values. And so that brings us back to more from that chronic pain standpoint. It's not about me telling either a child or an adult, well, of course you're in pain. Look at your diet. Of course you're in pain.
Oh, yes.
You're overweight.
Yes. Yes. And it's the same with the children too.
Yeah.
Because a lot of the time we're not feeding our children well, or it's not a good environment of feeling healthy ourselves as parents. Yes, definitely.
Right. And it's not that easy. Yeah, people have knowledge, but knowledge is not wisdom.
I love that. So true. So true.
Well, we could probably thank Dr. Lisa for that.
Yes, we can thank her for a lot of things.
Yeah, we can
both of us are involved with a lot of different coaching approaches that is with Mind Body Brand Academy and Dr. Lisa Holland. And I can't say enough about this woman. She is definitely a gem, and we both have learned so much from her and gained from her wisdom, so we can be wise too.
Absolutely. I think that, a little side note, I spent a lot of my life thinking that I had to I had to do it, and I had to have all the answers, and I couldn't rely on other people to help me. Not that people weren't offering to help me, but I almost was like, nope, I got it. I'm going to do this on my own. And I think it just opened my eyes to understand where it's okay to ask for help. Because when we need resources can come from a lot of different places.
Exactly.
And if I have depleted all of my resources from within me,
yes,
I sure as heck need something from the outside. Now I can't get
Yes.
dependent on outside resources, and my resources need to be those that serve my values, because, you know, you could think of like a resource as like alcohol or drugs, even pain medications. That is a resource that may have a benefit in the short term. But if you hand yourself over to that and say that that is now what I need to be okay, or so that I don't feel the pain, or that I am not uncomfortable, like that's not helping us. That actually shrinks our narrow our window of tolerance to handle challenge and to handle stress.
Yes.
And
And
then
that
we
has
don't build the
come
resiliency, and then we
right.
resilient.
That's just what I was going to come back to. Well, for the audience, they don't know too much about me, but I have been resilient in my life. And I am a physical therapist. And then I found out in my 50s that I had chronic disease. And I had to go through the process of dialysis. I got a transplant. The transplant didn't work from day one. So I'm on the search again. So when you talk about resiliency, that's a definition of me in itself, because I've decided not just to survive, but to thrive and to live with joy, regardless of what's going on with my body. I call it a dis-ease rather than a disease. And a lot of our patients out there, especially the adults, they want us to fix them when they come to physical therapy. And if you haven't taken care of your body that whole time, um, they're not going to come to us in one visit and we're going to be curing them. Otherwise, we might be Jesus. And I don't think I'm Jesus yet.
No,
So,
absolutely. That's true. I mean, absolutely. You are like the poster child for resiliency. And you had been met with a challenge, and maybe not every single time have been like, awesome, let's do it. But you don't have to be. You don't have to be happy. You don't have to be excited about the challenge to face it, to move through it, and to access, like I said, identify what your resources are. So this brings in that ACT, which is ACT and commitment therapy, which is developed from Stephen Hayes. And it's a version of cognitive and behavioral therapy. But for me, the two biggest differences, and I'm sure Dr. Joe Tata would tell me I'm maybe missing things, but the two biggest differences are in CBT, it's more about the thoughts that you're having need to be changed, as opposed to acceptance and commitment therapy is that the thoughts that you are having, do they align with your values? Do they align with your desires and ideals that you have in your life, or do they not? And if your ideas don't align, then you shouldn't be doing them. And then how do we change the context? Not change your thought, and that your thought is bad. We need to get rid of those thoughts, but accept your thoughts and move through them. So again, I feel like it's a little bit different of semantics, but it's really made a difference working with the families that I do work with, whether it is a little one and I'm more working with their parent, or if I'm working with an 18-year-old boy who has a label of autism and he has a diagnosis of spina bifida, and everybody in his life has always told him that these are his limits. Well, what does he
yes.
want?
Yes.
He wants fairness, he told me. He wants things to be simple. And he said he wanted to have fun.
I
So
love that.
after weeks and weeks and weeks and weeks, because I was taking him over from a different therapist, of him not wanting to do the exercises and just, oh yeah, we got down to what does he want?
Mm-hmm.
And then we began to tie them together. And then there was like a complete change.
Awesome. Awesome.
Because he identified, like he knew that in him. And I didn't tell him what to think or what to do, because I tried that and it didn't work.
Yeah. Yeah. I would imagine. No, it did not. No, it did. And
But then stepping back and taking that more of observer stance and understanding it's not about me. I am not the one making this change. So
Yes.
anyway, but I can help add marbles to the jar, like a reference of Brene Brown.
Ooh, is everything okay? Crash. You
My
okay?
dog can open the door from the
Oh,
outside. And so
he's very curious.
yeah, even though my door was shut. So
It's like, I'm going to get in anyways.
yeah, so I'm going to actually take a small break if we can to
Okay.
move their stuff out.
Okay. Sounds good. So I hope everybody is finding this very interesting. I definitely am. I can relate to a lot of these different things. And Christine talked about the box. How many of us live inside that box because our parents told us things, our teachers, all these different people told us, this is your limits. These are your boundaries. So if we can eliminate that expectation and just grow and learn, and like little kids, they just have such an imagination. They don't realize they have all those boundaries. We have to teach them, don't run in the street, those kind of things. They don't have those boundaries. So it's so important to think and feel and imagine outside of that box. It can open up so many doors for you. And she had spoken about something that I was connecting with. And not being happy about situations. So when I really realized I had this kidney disease and it was going to mean dialysis, you better believe I wasn't happy about that. I was going, yay, I can go and do dialysis. No, I was so afraid of life and I wasn't afraid of dying that I told people, my family, I'm not doing this stuff. I'm going on hospice. I'm out of here. I've had my kids. I've had my marriage, all those different things. And I'm not going to do that. I choose not to do that. And it took somebody to come to me, one of my family members, and invite me. They invited me to stay here on earth, that I was valued, I was needed, I was important. So think about how many times you can make that shift in your life from thinking and feeling and being in that box and what I call stepping left, or just changing your patterns of behavior and thinking. And if somebody's really suicidal, those kind of things, all you have to do is invite them, to let them know how important they are, that they should stay here on earth, that you love them. So with resiliency, we're going to get back to this conversation because I think Christine is taking care of business out there with the doggy and everything.
Oh my gosh, I apologize.
So how did you decide to become a physical therapist in the first place?
I think it was a calling. So honestly, when I was little, my dad would always give me massages, back rubs and massages. And so when I was in the third grade, my third grade teacher was pregnant with, I think her first baby. Yeah. And so this is my recollection of as an 8-year-old, it may not be exactly what she did. It probably wouldn't happen today, but when we would be watching like a movie, she would ask who would like to give me a back rub. And so we would all line up and give her her shoulders. And my recollection of it is that she asked me to come back twice.
Wow,
So,
you were special.
I was special. Now, granted, I'm a dyslexic learner. I didn't know it then, but I felt it then. I felt the anxiety of school. I felt that I was different, that I didn't learn the same. I was always louder and faster than everybody else. And like talking, like mind-wise, talking, and just people like, hold on, girl. But I didn't necessarily, I knew I was different, but so for somebody to say to me, even if that's just my imagination, that she asked me to come back twice, like that really meant a lot to me and made me feel special. Yeah. So fast forward, when I'm time to be in high school, what are you going to be? I was very into exercise and very into the body. So healthcare is something, but I can't stand blood. Like I'll pass out. In fact, and when I'm in just, I guess, anything kind of that looks strange to me is uncomfortable, to the point I was at the Shriners Hospital in Chicago doing an internship, volunteer work pre-PT school, and the little girl removed her upper extremity prosthesis. I turned around, stepped out of the door, and fell flat on my face because
Wow. I don't think we're supposed to do that as providers, but that's what
yeah.
happened to you.
It was just, so, and that wasn't even blood, right? I mean, that was all
Right,
it just
exactly.
visually, it didn't make much sense to me. And so when we think about inviting people to do things, and we're met with that challenge, or we're met with resistance from that other person, one of the things that I've learned to do is take a look at how their sensory system is interpreting the information. And is there a piece of the sensory system that I can, as if I'm the person inviting something, kind of remove? Meaning a sight, a sound, even like another person in the room. Or is there a way that I can create more safety for that? Because that's really all our senses are doing for us. Helping us discern, is the stuff that's coming in from my external environment or internal environment safe? If it's safe, I'm going to want more of that, and I'm going to want to explore that and keep going. If I perceive a threat, or if I perceive that this isn't safe, my brain automatically puts it into this hard stop, do not pass go. And it happens in the lower centers of my brain. So I'm not able to access cognition or thought. An example of this is when you touch a hot stove. If you were to touch something hot, whatever, a stove, it doesn't matter. Do you think to yourself, this is hot, I'm going to take my finger away now? Or does your action precede thought? Yes, your action precedes thought. Milliseconds before you even cognitively recognize that is hot, you move your hand away without telling yourself to do that. That's a reflex for safety and protection. And so when we come up from a sensory experience that we are pulled down into this reflex pattern, whatever our pattern is, that will take us there when we have a sensory experience that surpasses our threshold. So one way to work with this would be to remove those things anyway, so that you still have access to your thinking brain or your emotional body or whatever. Or you could add in something that can create some safety, most notably proprioception. It's the craze now. Everybody and their brother is selling weighted blankets. And people are benefiting from them. That's great. But what are they getting? They're getting proprioception. That tells me that we need to be hugging and touching people more. But what can't we do because we have to be social distancing? Our body craves this safety. So here, listeners, here's what you can do. Start with your hands up at your shoulders and take a deep breath in and squeeze the tops of your shoulders as you exhale. And now inhale and slide your arms down or hands down right above your elbows. And exhale and squeeze. Inhale, moving your hands, squeezing at the same time down to right below your elbows. And exhale, squeeze. Inhale, move your hands all the way down to about right at your wrist. And squeeze, exhale. And then squeeze and breathe off of your fingers.
Wow, I love that exercise. I have not been introduced to that specific exercise, and I love it.
Well, it's kind of a menagerie of things that I've learned, I've collected and put together.
Yes.
But we just gave ourselves some self-love through proprioception, through touch, and touch is a big one too. People don't want to be touched, or maybe afraid to be touched in this time. And yet our body needs that really to help regulate ourselves. Sensory processing problems or sensory dysregulation is not only a kid thing.
No.
And the sooner we recognize as adults when we are out of balance, the better it's going to be. So this again is how I try to make those connections for the parents, because the parents really see it as, his problem. He's different. What's wrong with my kid? And doesn't understand that these things, in my experience, are directly tied to our chakras.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't care whether you're 2 or 102, these principles are true. The idea of you can't be in protection, survival, and growing or learning at the same time is true. We need to
Exactly.
be in a calm and alert state for learning. Well, how do we be calm and alert? We have to be accepting of the sensory information coming from our external senses and from our internal senses. So we have a whole nother conversation about our 5 external and 5 internal senses. But if we don't have this awareness, we're less likely to make a change.
Mm-hmm.
So here I'm inviting what I want to see. The person's putting up resistance. I'm going to try to maybe take away a sensory piece, make it a little bit easier, calm my voice down, not talk so loudly.
Yes. Yes.
And if they're still not really coming on board, I could try something to make it more fun, add in some motivation. So things that are novel, things that are interesting, things that I know that the person I'm working with enjoys and likes, to help build that intrinsic desire to want to do it. And sometimes that's enough. Sometimes just dangling that carrot is enough to get that person going, and then they have the experience, and then they're like, yeah, that was awesome, I'm going to do it again. But sometimes it's not.
Yeah.
And you will see this. We'll see this in physical therapy. You'll see this in anybody. They go to do the action that they had already like motivated themselves to do, and then they stop and they retract, or they do something completely different, and you're like, you were just there.
Yeah.
You were just going to do it. So what's that? Well, again, this resistance will always be met with resistance.
Yes, exactly.
And how do we get out of that? Well, Viktor Frankl said, create a space. In that space, we have safety. So, and we find this too naturally, right? The less we try to control it, somehow it just goes. So I experienced this when I was trying to get pregnant. We were trying to get pregnant, and it wasn't happening. And one of my friends who already had 3 babies, a set of twins and another, was like, just stop trying. I couldn't wrap my head around it at that time. What do you mean stop trying? Well, what she was saying was stop trying to control it. Stop, create the environment that's appropriate for it. And if it will happen, it will happen, as opposed to me just trying to bulldoze it right over. So if that's not, that person were there in this resistance, what I would say, we should actually go back to what that other person is doing with ease. And here's another one that you're going to know from therapy, what we call strain, counter strain, muscle energy techniques. Go back to the direction of ease and apply resistance there. 20% resistance, not much resistance.
Right.
Let them work there and watch them be able to have access to the other. Not because you told them, but because they perceived it in their body. Their body perceived safety. And then they were able to move toward the direction that we were inviting. And then we just repeat and we provide love. If this is a relationship where we are able to really provide unconditional love, like you were saying, your family member, they weren't judging you. They were just providing that love and that support and an environment where you could feel safe to acknowledge that, yeah, there's another possibility. And that came from you. They were shining the flashlight on the road, but that had to come from you.
Definitely.
And there you go. That's how you build resiliency.
Yes, that is so important. So I hope that helps a lot of parents out there, providers, just individual themselves to realize that process and then to help the children with it. Definitely.
I have a graphic I can share with you that you can post.
Oh, super. I love that idea. And I wanted to talk about the weighted blanket just for a minute. And emphasize how important that can be. I have restless legs, and the weighted blanket helps with that restless legs. If you've never had restless legs, you can't sleep well at night. So if you need that extra pressure on your legs to help with that sensory input, those weighted blankets are wonderful. Yeah. I'm
Yeah,
so glad we have them
absolutely.
because we've had them in physical therapy for years, or at least the concept
Yes.
of the weighted blanket.
For sure, and it's a big thing for that OTs use for as in their sensory diets with their children and weighted vests and things like that. And I think if you're understanding why you're using it, and then really being able to tune into what that provides you, what are you feeling different in your body now that you have that, and I think I really believe that the pendulum swung all the way to like just do it and get it done, in spite of what you're feeling. And now we're moving back to more of this embodied sense with Stephen
Yes.
Porges and Peter Levine, who is talking about the waking the tiger within, but see, all these concepts are the same. What I'm talking about and what Porges and Levine are talking about, all the same, because it's the same nervous system.
Exactly. Yeah.
And it doesn't matter whether you're 2 or 102. These are what is going on. And then of course you can go back and look at yogic tradition and see that they knew this 3,000 years ago. But for whatever reason, we haven't learned the lessons yet, and here we are doing our work.
Yes, and it's cyclic too, from way back in the day to finally catching up with us again.
And even within ourselves is cyclical, which is important to understand. And I think something that as a younger person, I didn't understand, that once you achieve a goal, you've achieved it, which is not really true, because there's going to be another goal and there's going to be another process. You're going to have to do it again. You're going to have to go through. So to like say that there's like this end, it's not a downside. It's not a negative thing to say that there isn't an end. You support and stretch us to the next level. Like, where are you today? And is this working for you today? And if you're reflecting and noticing, where in your body are you feeling this? Oh, every time I talk to this person, I have this like tightness in my throat. That's strange. I'm like, it's not something that I cognitively do. Like, what is that telling me about that situation? And how does that change my behavior, not only with that person, but then now that I've like ignored this feeling, then 10 minutes, 1 hour later, how did that change my behaviors in other situations? And just recognizing that and acknowledging that I have something is telling me to stop or to be aware.
Exactly.
It doesn't tell me what is wrong. It just tells me stop. So I'm not sure where I went off with that tangent, but
that's definitely okay. All of this information is just wonderful. I've really had a good experience with you today, and I think our audience has too. And if they want to find you and learn more about all the different things you do, get some support, how can they find you?
I think the best thing, particularly for parents right now, is my podcast. It's called Sparkler Parents. And you can find it on Apple Music and Spotify and iHeartRadio, all of those. So that would be where I would send you. And just if you're interested in going, the season 2 is these little kind of Dharma talks, like we're having maybe 10 to 15 minutes about present moment parenting, and how to build this present moment awareness, not only with your kids, but in that process with yourself.
Yes, exactly.
In the season 3, I have put meditations. And actually that's where you'll find that little activity to kind of help provide resources for people. And honestly, if nobody listens, that's okay with me because I have at least one listener.
Oh,
My-
I believe that people will listen to this. This is good information. This is good stuff.
yeah, so
So
that's the best place to find me.
great. And where are you physically located?
I'm physically located outside of Denver, Colorado, in a small town called Arvada, and I do have a private practice in addition to my 40-hour job, just because I want to take more classes and learn more things, and so I've got to have money to pay for those classes.
You are a busy woman because you have 3 children plus all this.
Yeah, that's a whole nother conversation about recognizing that I don't need to be so busy.
Hmm.
What is that busyness avoiding? But
Yeah.
I'll save that for my
Yes. Yes, definitely. I think a lot of us in America are busy and doing rather than always being. I mean, we got to
being.
get stuff done, but being is important too.
Being is
Go over
important
to Europe. They might be able to teach us some stuff going over there.
for sure. Yeah. Well, it was a pleasure talking with you today, Beth. Thank you for having me on, and apparently my
Definitely.
dogs.
Well, I hope you and everybody out there has a great day. This has been a great conversation, and we'll see you next time. Everybody have a good day.
Bye.